It is Friday, January 9th, 2026. While the entire financial world, the Washington press corps, and the global markets held their breath for a Supreme Court ruling that never came, a senior White House official quietly admitted the entire spectacle might be irrelevant. Kevin Hassett, the Council of Economic Advisors chair, went on television today and said the quiet part out loud. He stated, on the record, that if the Supreme Court strikes down the president's tariff authority, the administration will simply, quote, use other authorities to get to the same place. Think about that. For weeks, you have been told that this Supreme Court case is the definitive check on executive power. You have been told that the rule of law hangs in the balance. You have been told that today was a binary shock event. But the administration just told you that the court case is procedural theater. If they lose on Plan A, they switch to Plan B. The tariffs remain. The policy outcome is fixed. Only the legal paperwork changes. So, why is every major network focusing on the drama of the courtroom while the administration is openly telling us the verdict doesn't matter? Let's look at how the legacy media framed today. If you opened Bloomberg, Reuters, or the Globe and Mail this morning, the narrative was synchronized. The focus was exclusively on the binary shock, the idea that we were standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for the Supreme Court to either push us off or pull us back. The Globe and Mail ran live updates, tracking every minute of silence from the court. Investing Live described markets as bracing for this binary event. The narrative technique here is something we call high-stakes framing. It is designed to keep you glued to the screen, refreshing the page, waiting for the one decisive moment that resolves the tension. They framed this as a battle between the president and the judiciary. A wrestling match. Who wins? Who loses? But here is what was omitted. Here is what was minimized. While the cameras were pointed at the Supreme Court steps, the administration was dismantling the stakes of the game. When Kevin Hassett spoke to CNBC, he didn't express fear of the court. He didn't express anxiety about the legal reasoning. He expressed bureaucratic certainty. The mainstream narrative relies on the idea that the Supreme Court is the final word. That is the civic mythology we are taught in school. But the reality, which the media is delaying acknowledging, is that the executive branch has accumulated so many overlapping emergency powers over the last 50 years that they can shop for authority. If the Trade Expansion Act fails, they move to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. If that fails, they find another. The media knows this, that legal analysts on these networks know this. But explaining the complex, redundant layering of executive authority is boring. It doesn't sell ads. It doesn't drive clicks. So instead, they sell you the drama of a court ruling that, functionally, might change nothing but the paragraph number on the executive order. This is an omission of context. They are reporting the score of the game without telling you that the game is rigged to go into overtime regardless of the clock. Let's put aside the narrative and look strictly at the facts available to us as of tonight, Friday, January 9th. Here is what we know. First, strictly regarding the timeline. The Supreme Court did not issue a ruling today. According to Bloomberg and the Globe and Mail, the court remains silent, pushing the uncertainty into next week. The timeline has been extended. Second, we have the market data. Reuters reports that the dollar advanced today. Why? Because the U.S. jobs data was strong, but also because the market is pricing in the durability of current trade policy. Despite the uncertainty of the court, the money is betting that the U.S. economic posture remains aggressive. Third, and most importantly, we have the direct evidence of intent from the White House. I want to read you the exact quote from Kevin Hassett on CNBC. This is not a rumor. This is the Council of Economic Advisors. He said, if we lose, then we have a backup plan. He continued, there are many, many statutes that give the president authority to do what he did. And so if the court rules that the specific statute that we used was the wrong one, then we'll use other authorities to get to the same place. This is the smoking gun. Get to the same place. This confirms that the administration views the tariffs not as a legal question, but as a strategic necessity. They are working backward from the outcome. Now let's look at the betting markets. Barron's reports that prediction markets have been swinging wildly. This indicates that the smart money, or at least the speculative money, is confused. They are trading on the legal outcome, the guilty or not guilty verdict. But based on the Hassett statement, these markets are asking the wrong question. They are betting on whether the front door is locked, while the administration is explicitly telling us they have a key to the back door. Here is what we don't know yet. We do not know which specific other authority Hassett is referring to. It is likely the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEPA, but that usually requires a declaration of a national emergency. We do not know the vote count inside the Supreme Court. The delay suggests valid internal debate. A 5-4 split takes longer to write than a 9-0 unanimous decision. The silence from the court suggests friction. However, the evidence points to one conclusion. The administration is prepared to double down, regardless of what the justices decide. Now, let's look at the reaction. When the Supreme Court failed to rule today, the immediate reaction from the political class and the media establishment was a mix of exhaustion and suspended hysteria. We saw reports from Investing Live detailing how markets are bracing. The language used is catastrophic, shock, binary. But look at the contradiction here. On one hand, you have the financial press screaming that a ruling against the president would be a massive market shock, potentially undoing the tariff regime. On the other hand, you have the president's own economist calmly stating on live television that the tariff regime is going nowhere. These two realities cannot coexist. Either the court ruling changes everything, or it changes nothing. The media is hyperventilating about the former, while the administration is planning for the latter. There is a hypocrisy in the coverage of the delay. When the court moves quickly, the establishment critics argue it is rushing to judgment or bypassing due process. When the court takes its time, as it is doing now, the same voices argue that the uncertainty is destabilizing the global order. The reaction from the betting markets, as noted by Barron's, exposes the short-term thinking of the financial class. They are trading on seconds and minutes. They are reacting to headlines. They are missing the macro-political shift. We are also seeing a preemptive reaction from the president's political opponents. They are preparing to spike the football if the court rules against him. They are readying the press releases declaring that the rule of law has prevailed. But if Hassett's backup plan is triggered immediately after a loss, that victory lap will be the shortest in political history. The opposition is preparing for a legal victory. The administration is preparing for a bureaucratic maneuver. The opposition is playing checkers. The administration is playing three-dimensional chess with the Federal Register. Based on this evidence, I'm going to make a prediction about what happens next week. The Supreme Court will eventually issue its ruling. That is inevitable. But my prediction is this. Regardless of the Supreme Court's decision, the media narrative will shift within 72 hours of the ruling to focus on a constitutional crisis. Here is why. If the court rules in favor of the president, the media will claim the court has abdicated its check on power. But, and this is the more likely scenario given the delay, if the court rules against the president and the administration immediately pivots to the backup plan Hassett described, the media will accuse the president of defying the Supreme Court. They will frame the use of other authorities not as a legal maneuver, but as an act of lawlessness. They will ignore that Hassett cited statutes and authorities. They will scream that the president is ignoring the highest court in the land. Expect to see headlines containing the words defiance, unprecedented, and dictatorial. The administration's incentive is to keep the tariffs. The media's incentive is to maximize conflict. The intersection of those two incentives guarantees that the next phase of this story isn't resolution. It is escalation. They don't want this information getting out. They want you fixated on the scoreboard, not the rules of the game. They want you surprised by the chaos, not anticipating the strategy. If you want to help us fight the algorithm and spread the truth, please tell me what do you think in comments.